Now, if you quote the name Emile Heskey to anyone on the street, they'll probably say something about him not being very good. They'll just say the word beast to you, or they'll quote a tune that came out about 10 years ago.
Don't know what you're messing with. This is Heskey Kid, he's the best there is.
Yeah, Emile Heskey is a goal scorer and trophy winner at Liverpool in his early days, and enjoyed an extremely fruitful career for England as well. Before all the strength and the integrity, KSI was shaping our childhoods on YouTube. Rather Fast Black Man was etched into my mind for about 4 years. It made me feel like I was a superhero, till I realized I was only brown, and saying it repeatedly wouldn't work at sports day. If you could just be slightly more black, that would actually help, Nero. But in the process of all of this, he shaped a whole generation's perception on Emile Heskey. And like that shop in Wakefield, they weren't truly understanding the value of his prime. Did KSI Ola G DBT ruin Emile Heskey? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go through his career, okay? You know, there's obviously the memes that come from KSI's videos in the past and what people's general perception is of Emile Heskey, but is it truly justified? Is he that terrible finishing, always missing his chance as striker that everyone seemed to believe he was after all the YouTube videos? Because if you don't know, and you are new to the world of YouTube, to the world of the Sidemen, to the world in general, when KSI was starting out on YouTube, I think one of the very, very early memes, probably the first meme realistically to come out, was these videos about Emile Heskey. Before though we get into all of that, if you do go on to enjoy the video, feel free to slap a like on it, and of course subscribe if you're new to the channel. Over 3,084% of you are currently not subscribed, so I'd really appreciate it if you hit that big red button. Now, a baby Emile Heskey came through the Leicester City Youth Academy back in the mid-90s. Now, this wasn't the same Leicester in the sense that they hadn't won a title in recent history like they have nowadays, but it was the same Leicester in the sense that they were terrible that season because they were actually relegated. In the season where he made his debut against QPR, he played one game, but down in the first division, or what's now known as the Championship, he would go on to become a first team regular, scoring a bucket load of goals and helping them get promoted via the playoffs. So now back in the Prem, he scores 10 goals in 35 league games at a young age, which is pretty solid in a team that's just got promoted. He ends up the runner-up in the PFA Young Player of the Year award during his time as well, behind only David Beckham. But Emile didn't marry a Spice Girl, so, and look, I know this was all the way back in the 90s when no one had even created the rainbow flick yet, but this is still a really good return for a young footballer in the Prem. The next season, 1997-98, scores 10 goals again, and he's starting to make a name for himself for not only being a powerful striker with good height, but also for one that's actually very intelligent, knows how to read the game, and is also really unselfish. And that's something that would represent his whole career, because one thing that most managers always said about Emile Heskey was he was a great enabler. If you look at Michael Owen, during the season he won the Ballon d'Or, Emile Heskey was there with him every single step of the way, allowing him to be the electric player that ended up scoring and grabbing all the goals, either through setting him up or movement that would put Owen through on goal, for example. Now we're into the 2000s, and Emile joins Liverpool for a then club record fee of £11 million, and he would help them in his first full season, grabbing 22 goals in all competitions, winning the FA Cup final against Arsenal, grabbing a goal in the League Cup final win against Birmingham, then winning the UEFA Cup final to make him a Liverpool treble winner. This guy, before he's even turned 24, has won a treble with Liverpool. He then scored a goal to win the Super Cup against Bayern Munich. By this point, he's now in the England setup, and he scores that 5th goal against Germany.
It's Emile Heskey!
The one problem was that a lot of people who would look at stats at the time and look at Liverpool's standing in the game would come to the same conclusion. He's not a consistent goal scorer. He was just never a goal machine. He wasn't that type of striker, if that makes sense. He got more game time into 2002-03, even when we signed Milan Baros, who should have been prosecuted by law for being a striker and wearing a number 5 shirt anyway. With a tally of 12 goals in 47 games in 03-04, it's looking like his time at Liverpool is up. Fans were losing a little bit of faith. Pundits thought he was being a bit fraudulent.
Bang, see you later, you go in prison.
And he ended up moving to Birmingham, sort of mid-table side in the Premier League at this point. He'd be their player of the season in his first campaign, but then injuries would strike. He'd only end up scoring 16 goals for them, and a 3-year spell at Wigan would follow. He'd score semi-regularly for Wigan, to a point where Fabio Capello would bring him back into the England fold. In 2009 though, and he heads over to Aston Villa. In his first full season, he gets 5 goals in 42 22. Oh, fucking. He's not scoring crazily frequently, but he's starting to be known on FIFA for being one of the strongest players on the game. And that is where a young KSI comes into play. JJ would release a couple of videos about Emile not being very good, missing chances all the time on YouTube. Basically, the precise point at which his career started to go on a crazy trajectory. KSI was on the come up at this point, and FIFA YouTube was in its early days. Nepenthes was confident checking his social blade numbers that month.
Easy top 3. If I'm not 16!
Nick 28T was starting his own love affair with black footballers.
Get it out, you fucking Nick!
Spencer Owen was a gang member. There was a lot going on, I can't lie. But Emile was getting done dirty. I'm talking, he's missing from the goal line, scoring own goals constantly in these vids. I'm pretty sure it started the whole B series, which then an entire clothing line came from. It was ridiculous. And quicker than you could say pink slips, this man's reputation was going downhill. The KSI was not without controversy at these times. He did and said some questionable things, but where Adebayo Akinfenwa was getting built up, Emile Heskey was getting dragged down. And to be honest, the game didn't really help him either. He was extremely strong, he was kind of slow, he had poor finishing, and he only had 1-star skill moves. Like, I'm pretty sure the goalpost could bring out more stepovers than he could, and it even came to a climax with a song that landed on iTunes by JJ and a baby Randolph, describing how shocking he was. His final full season in the Premier League came in 2012, then he would dip over to Australia for a couple of years before retiring at Bolton Wanderers, and a treble winner at Liverpool, as well as a full England international for over a decade, and officially ended his career as a meme. Now, fast forward to 2017, Spencer Owen's not in Harlem Spartans anymore, and he's organised the Wembley Cup, a tournament where YouTubers and retired former footballers would play off against each other for the Wembley Cup trophy. KSI would be representing a team in this one, and so would Emile Heskey, which means they would come across each other and meet for the very first time.
A complete honour to meet you. Sure? I know I've done a lot of shit in my part. I apologise for everything. Legit, like, ultimately, like, you're my idol.
To be honest, it was quite a wholesome interaction. You could tell that JJ was extremely nervous. He knew that he definitely wronged this man in his life. Emile was there, kind of taking it pretty well. He joked about it at first, saying, "Are you sure that you wanted to meet me or whatever?" And it seems like it's all calm. But then in an interview with Football Daily, and Emile seems a little bit less okay with it.
It's funny because you'll get people saying, "Well, he made you." I was 17 when I made my debut. How old was he? I was 16 when I've made my first start. How can anyone make you? Yeah, at the end of the day, if you feel that you need to jump on someone else's back to get yourself started and go on, it is what it is. He's done well. He's done well for himself, to be fair. So
it is a weird phenomenon. It was probably very strange for him. Like, the guy's been playing football for 15 years. A YouTuber comes along, you know, takes some digs at him because he's not very good on FIFA. Fair enough, it is what it is. KSI was young, like we all were. I think it was pretty jokes, to be honest with you. Apart from some of the things were not acceptable. But the idea that he was made by KSI, or I guess younger fans who didn't know about him when he was playing for Liverpool, for example, saying that he was made by a YouTuber must be so frustrating, because he's been out here. He's been winning European trophies for over a decade, bro. At the end of the day, I'm sure he will admit that he was not the most prolific goal scorer, but not only in terms of his big stature and the presence that he had in the front line, Emile Heskey will go down as probably one of the most intelligent strikers to play football in the Premier League during the entire decade of the thousands. There's not another striker in world football that can say they've brought the most out of Michael Owen and Wayne Rooney within 5 years of each other. He's a man who scored a decent amount of Premier League goals for over a decade for a number of different clubs, won a good collection of trophies, including 3 in one season, and has over 60 caps for his country. Now, there was definitely a period, I would say, where KSI had probably ruined Emile Heskey's reputation. I think when those videos were first coming out and you had 12-year-old kids, or even kids like me who were not old enough to watch him back in fucking 2001, probably thinking, yeah, this guy is the worst thing that we've ever seen in football. But he was never really that guy that got a bucket load of chances and missed them all of the time, like we've seen from people like Timo Werner, Alvaro Morata, or even Darwin Nunez recently. I think the good thing is, in the aftermath of the KSI Heskey meme, a lot of people have gone back and realized that he was a lot better than was portrayed at that time in his life. You know, when you watch the Oscars and there's always an award for like the best supporting act, Emile Heskey will probably win that every time. But what do you make of the situation? situation. Do you rate Emile Heskey like that? Hopefully you do. You know, if we're gonna be honest, some of those old Heskey videos or the old Heskey song, they were kind of jokes, whatever. But I think he, as a footballer, deserves a better reputation than he's had over the last decade. If you have enjoyed this video though and you want to see more videos like this, then feel free to slap a like on it, and of course subscribe if you are new to the channel. You can also follow me on social media. It is at officialfng on Twitter and on Insta. But it's been a pleasure ranting at you guys today. Have a wonderful day, enjoy yourselves, and goodbye.